I mean, in some sense, the big problem in the United States is that the last 40 years, or really since the 1980s, you've had this expansion of globalization, you've had economic growth, you've had increased prosperity, but it has not been common prosperity, it has not been shared. And people, working class people, people without a college education have not benefited at all. And that's provided the social base for, Make America Great and President Trump. But the institutional basis of that is being severely challenged in the United States at the moment. The rule of law is being challenged, democracy is being challenged. The capacity of the state is being challenged.
Trump himself imposed another tariffs on steels and aluminum on Canada, multiple countries.
Yeah.
How do you see his policy on tariffs? Will that make America?
I think, look, that's just bad economic policy. That doesn't worry me, I'm much more concerned about the institutional problems, about the destruction of the state, the deinstitutionalization of the state, the personalization, the privatization of the state to President Trump and his cronies and Elon Musk. For me, that's much, much more of a concern. The threat to invade and annex Greenland and Panama, that's a threat to the whole world order, it seems to me. Tariffs is a bad economic policy. I can live with bad economic policy. President Trump had tariffs before, by the way, in his first administration, and so did President Biden. So, is that bad for the world economy? Sure. But I think we're talking about something much bigger here.
I'm also curious, how do you see the current China-U.S. relations? If it were to get, the tension get escalated, how would that impact them?
Well, I'm not an expert on that. I suspect China doesn't really know how to deal with this either. They're waiting to see if things are for real or whether they're a bargaining strategy. Like that, some people have this narrative about President Trump that you don't know what's for real and what's a negotiating tactic. So I expect everybody is a little bit waiting to see what's happening with that, but Justin Trudeau, for example, the Prime Minister in Canada, certainly thinks that, the threat to annex Canada is for real, and the Prime Minister of Denmark seemed to believe that President Trump talking about taking Greenland was for real. So how does that affect the Chinese exactly? No, tariffs. China exports many things to other countries. They then export them to the United States. So, you can get around these things with different sorts of strategies, I would think.
So for the future, if the situation gets more escalated, do you think it's probably the world is okay?
I think, the United States has an interest in China prospering. Elon Musk has an interest in China prospering. The world has become much more affluent in the last 30 or 40 years because of Chinese economic growth. That's raised millions of Chinese people out of poverty, and it's had enormously positive effects elsewhere. And maybe it's also created this alternative model that we were discussing earlier. I'm skeptical, but it's interesting, And one thing I see in Africa, for example, is the way that Chinese people interact with Africans is very different from the way Westerners interact with Africans. Westerners, we love to tell Africans what to do. You should be more like us. We tell them they're corrupt and they're incompetent and stuff. Chinese people are much less like that. Chinese people don't come and say, no, you should be like us, you should do things like us. It's a much more level playing field, interestingly enough, although China is very big and powerful. Like what I see is that many African elites, they prefer to interact with Chinese people because they understand what's at stake, and they're not being patronized, So there's many interesting implications of this Chinese development experience. So I think the whole world collectively needs China to flourish. So hopefully, you know, sanity will reign. Yes. But I've never done serious research in China. Yeah.
So like visit Shanghai.
Shanghai. I was just in Shanghai and Hong Kong in January.
That's great. Yeah, I hope you can visit Shanghai again.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes.